What's up guys, my name is Josh and today we're going to be talking about the Sony Z1R. Now this is Sony's flagship closed back headphone. It comes in at a scorching $2,000. To give you the quick TLDR, this is a pretty incredible headphone that took me by surprise. So the overall sound of this thing is dynamic and attentive. It's got a bass response that reaches into the depths, a diamond etched treble, and one of the best iterations of a V-shaped sound signature that I have personally ever heard. And what's really impressive about this headphone is that everything I just said is applicable regardless of whether I'm considering open backs or closed backs. And this is a closed back headphone, and that almost makes some of the feats that this can do even more impressive. Now, before we get started, I do want to send a very special thank you to the very nice patron who sent this out for a review, Brandon Buzzle. I do appreciate it. I had a lot of fun with this headphone. Thanks again. Treble Response is where we'll start, and there is a pretty big peak right at 10K. And before I'd ever been offered to review this headphone, I had seen graphs from Interfidelity, which I'll post up here, and you can see there's a monumental peak in the 10K area. Now, before I'd heard this headphone, I was thinking that that peak was gonna bug me a lot because I'm pretty treble sensitive, but surprisingly, it hasn't really bugged me that much, which has been kind of well, a pleasant surprise, really. Now, since we already have that graph up, let's go ahead and talk about the treble response as a whole. So you've got that 10K peak, and you can see on either side of that, it's pretty recessed. And that brings me into one complaint I do have about the treble response is that I kind of wish there was a little bit more in terms of the air frequencies, you know, like above like 15K. There just doesn't really seem to be a lot of those real finite, you know, real finite frequencies up there, which is just a bit disappointing, and in a perfect world I would have brought that up a little bit more. But one of the notable aspects to the treble response is that 10K area seems to be highlighting a lot of the kind of electronic hissing and buzzing that is heard oftentimes in a lot of music. It is brought up quite a noticeable level, and for me it's pretty much constant in the majority of my music, except for the stuff that was recorded with like perfect gear. So that is something that is probably an unintended side effect of the sound signature that this has. So mid-range is pretty good, especially in terms of tonality and the way that it mixes with the bass response. And even though this has a boost in the mid bass and the sub bass areas, it does not bloom at all into the mid-range response. So it leaves the mid-range very clean, albeit a bit recessed. Vocalists do tend to take a step back. If you were listening to more, you know, modern music, let's say, just for an example, what came out recently, like the Billie Eilish album. This is definitely a headphone that is really displaying the music around the singer very well. And you're getting a lot of the deep notes, you're getting a lot of the treble response, not in a harsh way, but you're just getting a lot of that information. And then the singer, I mean, like with most headphones, if it's a really focused track, yes, you're gonna get a highly focused vocalist if that's how the recording is displayed. But regarding vocalists that are mixed more as part of the music, they don't really take a step forward, which is a bit disappointing to see. Now, despite the recession in the mid-range and especially the upper mid-range, something that was very pleasant here was instrumental music. The finishing of the treble and the bass and how deep and low it really goes was really impressive. So on like guitar, you get this like deep-seated, powerful sound behind it. And then you get all the detail and all the texture in the mid-range, but then it kind of finishes off the plucking and the tension with that treble response. Overall, the mid-range could certainly do better, but I found this headphone to be very enjoyable. Now let's talk about that bass response here, because that's gonna be one of the definite selling points to this headphone. Now, some headphones that measure similar in the bass response are going to have very bloated sound, and despite the boost in the bass and the mid bass of this headphone, it never sounds bloated to me. It always sounds super clear, like almost transparent. And so for a closed system like this to have the bass response that it does without really any downsides to it. Now it's definitely on the deeper, more powerful side, but it's seemingly not influential on the rest of the music. It's hard to like describe. It's not like the bass is separated from the music. It's definitely part of the music, but it doesn't seem to be disrupting any of the other frequencies, which is pretty incredible. Now, regarding imaging and soundstage, imaging is to be expected, very crisp, very pinpoint accurate. Sound staging though, this headphone, I will not call it an open sounding headphone. Like, it doesn't sound like it's open. It's not able to display quite that level of openness, but it doesn't sound like it's a closed back headphone. So it's kind of like a weird hybrid for Soundstage, where it's very wide, it's definitely accurate, it's got this kind of globe that it tends to operate in, and it's very accurate within that globe. And it's not super far out, it's definitely not 800 wide, but it also Soundstage is far beyond the physical barrier of the actual ear cup, which is, if you're paying $2,000, I would hope it would. All right, so before we get into the conclusion, let's talk build quality and power requirements. So these are 64 ohm headphones. They have a sensitivity of 100 decibels per milliwatt. And because they're closed and they don't really leak that much, you can pretty much run them off of anything. You are going to see a little bit of a benefit going to an amplifier though in terms of sound quality. Now build quality, and surprisingly, this to me is the most impressive part of this headphone. The build quality here is exceptional. You can start with the box. The box, while large, is very well built. Comes with a couple cables, but the real impressive part is just the fit and finish of this headphone. It's got plastic cups, but metal arm brackets, and they feel very solid. The pads are kind of uniquely shaped to where they're kind of thin around the back, top, and front, but a little bit thicker at the very bottom, kind of back here area. Very similar to the pad structure on the Sendy Ava. So the headband is kind of interesting. So it's got this hard kind of bracket area right here for this headband extension to slide in right up until about this point, and then everything from here to here is very soft. Now, when I first felt that by hand, I was a little concerned about it. I didn't feel like it was going to be all that comfortable, but on at least my head, this is one of the more comfortable headphones I've worn, period, at any price point of any type. The weight distribution is awesome. The fit and finish, the ports, the hinges, the just incredibly tight tolerance of everything. You've got these screw-on cables in the back. I've actually been using a balanced Periap cable, so shout out to Periap. And then you've got these ear cups that unscrew to reveal a massive and beautiful kind of flower-like structure around the driver. And despite its size, it comes in at a fairly lightweight 385 grams. And to aggregate the entire build, it's just simply one of the best built headphones that I've tested here on the channel. So that leads me to the conclusion. Now, I'm very confident in my assessment of this headphone in saying that if you are into the sound signature that it offers, this is the best closed back headphone that I've tried. Now, what I'm not confident in is saying that this is better than some of the other similarly priced closed back headphones like the LCD-XC, some of the Mr. Speakers headphones. There's a number of other closed back headphones, and I have not really tried them outside of an audio event. So while I think this headphone is great, the one question that I cannot answer for you is whether a certain specific closed back headphone around this price range is better than it. So maybe somebody in the comments can help you out. If you have that question, feel free to leave it, and somebody might be able to describe what's better on what headphone and what to go for if you want something else. But regarding the package that's in front of me, yes, it's V-shaped. No, that's not going to be for everybody. Are certain people going to enjoy it? Absolutely. Do I enjoy it? Yes. I highly recommend checking some other reviews out before you make your final decision, and maybe some comparisons if you can find them online. All right, guys, thanks very much for watching. I will leave links to everything that I talked about in the description down below. Thank you very much to the very nice gentleman who sent this out again. I do appreciate it. And until the next video, my name's Josh, signing off.